No mai, haere mai, piki mai, kake mai. Welcome to Auckland Museum Matariki Conversations. I was lucky enough to sit down with Imedia Puia Taylor, Precious Clark and Pio today to gather their whakaro on Matariki in this winter season of gathering, remembering and renewing. These conversations were centred around Hauora and Te Whare Tapa Whā, a Māori model of health encapsulated by Tāmaki and Durie in 1984. The four dimensions are taha tinana, taha wairua, taha whanau and taha hinengaro. I hope you enjoy the kōrero from our speakers wherever you are. So from me, Elliot Collins, and all of us here at Tāmaki Paenga Hira, Auckland Memorial Museum, ngā mihi o te tauhou Māori.
Te Whare Tapa Whā to me is still completely as relevant as it was when Sir Mason Durie shared it with the world. It's funny how it was revolutionary at its time because of its time. Any kind of medical diagnosis was focused on the physical element, and this allowed people to recognise that there's these other paradigms at play that run in parallel with it. So when I think of te taha wairua during lockdown, you know, that waxed and waned for me. It wasn't an easy period for me. All 5 boards were in crisis. My business was in crisis. And I was at home with 2 kids and my husband, and my son's 2.5, and he demanded my attention as he should. So my taha wairua was kind of all over the place, but when you recognise something like taha wairua as being essential to your well-being, then you are able to pay attention to it. And so I was able to do that through karakia, through karanga, through walking on whenua. And the taha wairua is really a recognition of your connection to atua, which are things that we find in our natural environment, personified, and your ability, my ability to connect to them, particularly during lockdown, became really important. And so I would create my own forms of meditation where I would link to atua wahine in particular to try and find some either resilience or calm or strength or patience. And we have different atua who can help guide you with that. So if we think of Hine Pūtehue, who was atua wahine who had a gourd, and within that gourd she held the anger and anguish of tūmatauinga, and so she's a peacemaker. And so through meditation, being able to connect to the likes of her to help me through some pretty tumultuous times during lockdown. But you know, there's the other elements being te taha tinana, te taha hinengaro and whanaungatanga. And you know, during lockdown, the ability to connect to your whanau was zero, other than Zui. So that became hard, and it really honed in the value of relationships and the importance of social connectivity with friends and family. And while Zui went some way, when I could actually hug my friends and family, it was a moment to cry because, getting teary-eyed now, because of a really strong recognition of the importance of that. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. So I'm privileged enough to be able to recite 9 generations of my whakapapa off by heart, and I'm working really hard to increase that as well. What that does for me is it helps me understand that I am, I like to describe it as there's an umbilical cord that connects me to my tupuna, and there is an umbilical cord that connects me to my generations yet to come. And so I feel like I'm always upheld by something. And so no matter where I go, how I behave, I'm always going to be upheld by things that I can't see. And so if I think of my tupuna and my whakatipuranga, my future generations, they are encased within the universe. And so I'm always upheld by the universe. I'm always upheld by my atua who I have a whakapapa connection to, and in that I can always feel safe. What it also does is I consider that through acknowledgement of taha wairua, I have an ability to tap into mātauranga information and knowledge that I might not have been taught or I might not have experienced. And I call that tapping into my blood memories. And so when I'm in an environment of uncertainty, I can close my eyes, I can say karakia, I can ask my tupuna, can you help me out? And stay silent enough to hear their response, and then find a pathway forward. Might not always be the right pathway, but it's a pathway. And so I feel like through that, I'm always upheld by something. There's always a safety net. There's always a cushion around me to help me do the things that I want and need to do in my lifetime. I would absolutely agree that you can get resilient support, aroha, from your family and your extended family. And I guess an example I'd like to share is 2 weeks ago I organised a tuku karanga at Wairaka, and so it was a response to a friend of mine from Taranaki, Ngā Hina Hohaia, being verbally and physically racially assaulted up at the maunga, and as mana whenua in that area and in the wider Auckland area determined that wasn't good enough and it wasn't acceptable, so put the call out to people to come to Wairaka and tuku karanga. So it prioritised the voice of women, and between 300 and 400 people turned up. But what gave me the strength to do that is that I was supported by my iwi. So I'm on our trust board at the moment, so I spoke to our trust board and said, I'm interested in doing this, will you support this? And they said yes. I went to my kāhui kaikaranga, so all of my kaikaranga in my iwi, and said, I'd like to do this, are you with me? And they said yes. I went to our cultural experts and they said yes, and went to our kaumātua and they said yes. So what that did is I connected to my living family and got their support. And so I was extremely confident walking in, knowing that they were all backing me to take that leadership on such a political and confrontational issue. Yeah, so I could have done that on my own, but it wouldn't have been as meaningful, it wouldn't have been as impactful, and I probably would have got emotionally drained from it because I didn't have that nest around me supporting me. That's how I see it anyway. Yes, I do encourage Māori to explore their own culture and make a connection with their whānau, their hapu and iwi. In saying that, I recognise that it's not easy. I lived a privileged life. I grew up in my tribal domain. I currently live within a stone throw away from my marae, and my closest 100 neighbours are my cousins. And that's a privilege. Not everyone has that experience or opportunity. What I do know though is that within Māori society, we will often say, I'll go home to find out, but it assumes that there are all of these mechanisms in place to make that a safe process. So it assumes you know where your marae is, it assumes that it's open, it assumes that there's someone there to welcome you, it assumes that that somebody there who might welcome you has mātauranga, and it assumes that they will share that mātauranga with you, and it assumes that they're good at sharing mātauranga. And there's a long line of things that need to be in place for that to be a way for particularly Māori who have had an experience of disconnect to be able to engage. And sometimes as iwi, we're not that friendly to whānau who we are not familiar with. And so our aroha for our whānau, beyond the people who are always on call, it can grow a little. But I do encourage non-Māori to explore Māori culture, and that's my profession. That's what I do for a living. And what I see is that through the exploration of Māori culture, I see non-Maori are able to fulfill and be able to determine what their own identity is. Because for New Zealanders, it's not just buzzy bees, All Blacks and barbecues. There is something deeper to connect to. And what I see is their lived experience of being here in Aotearoa is strong, and there's a beautiful natural environment for them to connect to. And they tend to find that connection through the exploration of Māori culture. And so I kind of think that our culture is something that can help people determine their own identity if they're tired of buzzy bees and pavlovas. Yeah, definitely. So if you think of Te Whare Tapa Whā being those 4 dimensions, taha wairua, taha tinana, taha hinengaro, whanaungatanga. For me, mauri is the glue that holds all of those things together. So, so it's the viscosity of the glue is indicative of the strength of your mauri. So if, say as an example, if my daughter came home and I could read that something wasn't quite right, you could use Te Whare Tapa Whā as a diagnosis tool. So what's going on here? And is it physical? Is it taha wairua? Is there something spiritually out of kilter? Is it hinengaro? Is there some mental health issues there? And it could, you could come to resolve that it's bullying, and you can read that because her mauri's been impacted. So she might come home, she's drooping, she doesn't want to engage, she wants to hide. So it's a really useful tool that I use to be able to diagnose and then determine how do we make things right. And I think the beauty about something like mauri or tapu is that they're as real as gravity. And we have a common understanding of the impact and the significance and importance of gravity. And we just need to fill our mātauranga with these other concepts which are as real, like mauri, like tapu. And Te Whare Tapa Whā model can help us deepen our understanding of those things. I wasn't raised learning and experiencing traditions around Matariki. For me, that was a relatively new phenomenon that came out really strongly, I guess, in a civic environment, through festivals and celebrations. But as a whanau with my husband, having done that tuku whenua, I chose to do it on the winter solstice. And as a result of that, a number of people have asked me, can you do this weekly, monthly, biannually or annually? And in having kōrero with different parts of my family about, those requests, we think we might do it on every solstice, so a winter solstice and a summer solstice, because ceremony attached to those days, I can't see it around anywhere. And so I think that will become a part of our habit around Matariki and around these cold months, is on winter solstice create an opportunity for tuku karanga to prioritise the voice of woman. What I recognise from the tuku karanga that we organise at Wairaka is that I te nuinga o te wā noho wahangu ngai wahine. So for the most part, women don't get the opportunity to really express their feelings unless you're in a conference or some other kind of platform. As wahine Māori, it's difficult to have an opportunity, a platform to really say how you're feeling. If you have close relationships with your men, then you can through them, but it's not guaranteed. And so the idea of making ceremony around winter and summer solstice for me is about prioritising the reo of women and giving wahine Māori a platform to express whatever political, emotional kaupapa they feel they need to. Ai, ko taku inoi, my okua wata, my aspirations would really be around protecting our Indigenous brothers and sisters whose country's leadership isn't looking after them. So I'm thinking of all of my friends who are my extended family who live in Hawaii and in America in particular, and throughout the world as well, whose leaders don't seem to be prioritising the most vulnerable in their decisions with COVID-19, and my heart really extends to them. And so for them to protect themselves, look after themselves, so that when this COVID-19 washes over, if it ever does, that they're strong and they're standing and they're ready to continue to uphold their tikanga and their cultural practices. We're lucky here, we've got good leadership that's looked after a team of 5 million. So it's ho hauterongo really for all of my Indigenous brothers and sisters who I'm really worried for, deeply.